Campbelltown has now been proclaimed a city, for which it has received much recognition. But the recognition of Campbelltown goes back quite some time. In fact, Campbelltown boasts one of the world-famous ghosts of all time. It is here at Fisher's Ghost Creek that the story began about 135 years ago. It appears that a farmer called Frederick Fisher disappeared from Campbelltown and was not seen again, alive. Now, his neighbour, called Worrall, claimed that he'd gone back to England and then proceeded to sell up all his assets. About 4 months later, a man staggered into a pub in Campbelltown and claimed that he'd seen the ghost of Fisher, what he thought was the ghost of Fisher anyway, sitting on the bridge here at Campbelltown. Now, the ghost had pointed down the creek and then faded away. A search a little later by a number of men found the body of Fisher.
The boys all stood around the bar and drank their liquor down. It was at O'Connell's pub one night in Campbelltown, when suddenly John Farley came rushing through the door. I've seen a ghost, Fred Fisher's ghost, to all his mates he swore. Fred Fisher had just disappeared in this mean foul place. No one knew where he had gone or why he went away.
Just down this creek, Worrall was arrested and subsequently tried and convicted of the murder of Fisher and hanged. But whether it's a true story or not remains to be seen and will always be a mystery to the people of Campbelltown.
The boys all stood around the bar and drank their liquor down. It was at O'Connell's pub one night in Campbelltown, when suddenly John Farley came rushing through the door. I've seen a ghost, Fred Fisher's ghost, to all his mates he swore. Fred Fisher had just disappeared in this mean foul place. No one knew where he had gone or why he went away. And all the boys were silent as Farley told his tale, how Fisher's ghost had stood there leaning on the old stone rail. He stood and pointed to the creek, said Farley with alarm, pointed to the creek that runs below Fred Fisher's farm. And I could see right through him as down the track I fled. I tell you boys, I've seen his ghost, Fred Fisher must be dead. The story of Fred Fisher's ghost soon spread around the town, and in the dusty street next day the people gathered round. Then young Trooper Leland to Fisher's place did go, and with him went black trackers Jackie Gilbert and Joe. John Farley took them to the spot where Fisher's ghost had stood. Tracker Jackie Gilbert said, I smell a white man's blood. And then the Trooper Leland knew he was on the trail, for he had found a smear of blood upon the old slip rail. The two black trackers searched around to see what they could find. Then they went down to the creek with Leland close behind. Then Gilbert and old Joe saw marks upon the ground that led them to Fred Fisher's grave beneath the marshy mound. The police found out why Fisher died and how he met his end, and they arrested George Worrall, though he'd been Fisher's friend. When Worrall faced the hangman, a guilty man was he, and he confessed before he died upon the gallows tree. So if you go to Fisher's farm a certain night each year, people up in Campbelltown say Fisher will appear. You'll see his ghost at midnight when eerie shadows creep, just leaning on the old slip rail and pointing to the creek. Pointing to the creek, pointing to the creek, pointing to the creek.
In the roaring 1820s, he moved out to Campbelltown, which was called Campbelltown in those days. He managed to acquire a large amount of land, but no residential house, so he lodged with his former convict mate, George Worrall. This house stood where the modern town hall would stand, centuries later. 17th of June, 1826, exactly 189 years ago from this second, now, Fred Fisher disappeared. George Worrall let the people of Campbelltown know that Fred had gone to London for a holiday, and then promptly began selling off his land. And he would have got away with it too, if it wasn't for a meddling ghost. Time passed, as it often does, and one evening, a bloke named John Farley was walking across a bridge, when, to his utter amazement, an eerie, pale, spectral figure, resembling that of Fred Fisher, but with an uncharacteristically bleeding head, appeared sitting on the bridge railing, looking not too pleased. After screaming, Farley managed to communicate more succinctly with the ghastly spirit, asking, "Didn't you go on a holiday to London?" To which the ghost-like ghost simply pointed in a direction that was not London, but instead a creek running back to the train tracks. The ghost of Fred Fisher then vanished, and so did Farley into the nearest pub, and after a beer or 7, he told of his extraordinary encounter. First thing the next day, a search party, assisted by Aboriginal trackers, found the terribly decomposing body of Fred Fisher, with bashed head, buried in a shallow grave, right where the apparition had pointed. A lucky guess? Or something else? Something else. George Worrall was arrested, tried and convicted of the murder and sentenced to Australia, but since he was already there, they hung him. One mystery still endures. Where is the location of the bridge that Farley saw the ghost on? Is it this one? Could this be the bridge?
So I'm just at, this is the Fisher's Ghost Bridge. Well, there used to be the bridge here. It's the creek. I will tell you about some of the history of here anyway. Let's get out and this car goes past. Oh fuck. Oh. Fisher's Ghost Reserve. This is it. So this is where they used to see the ghost. It's pretty dried up at the moment. There's a reserve here. to go. Bye. That's Richmond Villa. Can't go in there at the moment. Queen Street. Just going down there now. A lot of history here. It's all changed. I'm not sure how far I can drive down here. I think it's a plaza. There's the old theatre, just there. Look at the old buildings. A few haunted places here. A lot of history. Oh, I'll have to come through some of these buildings at night time. Fisher's Ghost. So it doesn't run down here. I remember the old. Remember it was originally. The old. It was around. Actually, the bridge was around here somewhere. Old Campbelltown post office. It's the plaza in front of us.